We're going to go through the highlight games of the slate. It is a better card than last week. Certainly deeper in now to conference play. And, we're starting to see the cream rise to the top. We're starting to see the overrated continue to be somewhat overrated. The underrated continue to be underrated. But the beauty of it is the way the schedule is kind of pointing through November at least, so that these teams are all going to play each other. And at least the teams that are in discussion here, a lot of these teams are going to play each other, and then there's a lot of teams in the mix. Chris, how's it going?
Going well. Like you said, I'm really excited for this week's college football card. A lot more than I was last week's. You got the Red River rivalry, you got Alabama, Texas A&M games we're going to talk about later on. But yeah, it's now we were in day 2 of the. I think it's 50 days in a row with at least one football game on the board. I'm excited for it.
Ron, how's it going with you?
It's going good, Mitch. I think it's an entertaining card. A lot of good games, like Chris mentioned. Maybe not the best from a betting perspective, but there's still certainly some value spots that we'll be talking about today.
I think we're starting to see, in some of these conferences, with the Big 12 expanding out, maybe them getting actually a little bit more credibility just in time for Oklahoma and Texas to leave. I think, the Pac-12 getting more credibility just in time for them to disband. And, some of these other big conferences looking very, very top heavy, and the SEC looking very watered down, for a change. And the ACC, I think people are still don't trust it. And I think that's what we're seeing with Florida State in the rankings. But as it goes on, we'll see. And I think, Clemson coming out and making that statement last week against Syracuse maybe says something about the SEC, and at least the top of it. And I think when we look at all the other conferences, the SEC, the top doesn't look so, Georgia hasn't looked all that fantastic. They continue to win games, but nobody else has looked all that dominant either there. And in the Big Ten, Ohio State, the 1-point win against Notre Dame, they certainly look vulnerable. Penn State, are they for real? And, Michigan, they play one road game, and it's at Lincoln, Nebraska. So, what does that really mean? We're going to find out in the coming weeks. We'll talk a lot about these teams as we go through the schedule. Of course, a lot of the teams that we mentioned have the week off as well. So, it's, what would Kawhi do? We'll just take the week off. Well, let's just get started. On Friday night, we go to, normally I'm in preview mode here. I think that's what I'll do. Go to Stillwater, Oklahoma, where the Oklahoma State Cowboys take on Kansas State. Kansas State 3-1 coming into this thing. The Cowboys 2-2. Chris, any look on this Friday night contest?
Yeah, I don't love this number with Kansas State, but I still like the Wildcats here in this one. Oklahoma State, they've went with Alan Bowman fully in that last game. They've had a bye week. Actually, both teams have had a bye week coming into this one. But Oklahoma State, they've been rolling with 3 quarterbacks for the first, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks of the season. That's that old saying: if you have 3 quarterbacks, you don't have one. Well, I think that ends up being the case here. I think Kansas State, I think they're just the better team here. The home team has covered the last 5 meetings, but I think we bucked that trend here. I think Kansas State win this one by 2 scores. So give me the Wildcats.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, 5-0 the last 5 against the spread, the home team is covered. And I think it's not the prettiest game, but I think there's value at this type of price with Oklahoma State. I mean, this has been a really disappointing season for the Cowboys, but still only 2-2, in the win-loss record. And the one thing that Oklahoma State's done well defensively is stop the run, and that's something Kansas State, we know, in previous seasons. They love to run the football. This year, no different. 38 rushing attempts per game on average, right around 200 rushing yards per game. But if they're not moving the ball too well on the ground, Oklahoma State, like I said, solid run defense. I don't know if they're going to be able to score enough points to cover this big number on the road. I mean, it still is a road game here. So I'm going to take the points with Oklahoma State. Don't love the offense, don't love the defense, but I think it's a really good price, kind of a buy low spot for Oklahoma State.
I think, like Chris was saying, that the 3-headed monster there, which is really not even a monster at Oklahoma State, a quarterback, certainly is a problem. And we look at the Oklahoma State schedule compared to what Kansas State has played. It's really not all that impressive with Central Arkansas, South Alabama, Arizona State, and then losing by a touchdown against Iowa State in the game. They were getting 3.5. And you look at Kansas State, and the last time we saw them, now they've had a week off, was that beatdown of UCF, 44-31, not nearly as close as the score even looked in that game. UCF was never in it. The one loss, that bomb field goal by Missouri at Mizzou. So, a very, Missouri team that actually is a lot better than probably what the respect that they're getting. A little bit of stigma working against them. I don't know. This is a lot of points, man. But the thing is, once Kansas State starts running downhill, you kind of don't want to be on the other end of the avalanche. So it's an early lean to Kansas State. I'm going to dig a little bit more before I have any premium picks or anything going on that. But, Chris, who'd you take?
I took Kansas State.
Ron took
Oklahoma State.
Oak State. Mitch took K State. All right. Los Serpientes. I love saying that. Go to the Red River rivalry, Texas State Fairgrounds, the Cotton Bowl, where Texas takes on Oklahoma. Two 5-0 teams coming into this one. Sooners, not quite the same Sooner team that we saw under Lincoln Riley. Weird to see a Will Venables team that the defense isn't great, isn't just stellar. And Texas, I'm personally waiting for Steve Sarkisian to fall flat on his face. Ron, what do you think of this one?
I don't know. The Oklahoma defense, you could say hasn't played anybody, but it's only given up 11 points per game so far. Great on the ground, good secondary. I think these teams are evenly matched. That's why I'm just going to take the points here at Oklahoma. Obviously, Texas has the bigger win on its schedule over Alabama, but I think Oklahoma, experienced quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. I like the way the offense has looked. I'd like to see the run game get a little bit more efficient as the season goes on, but we know, a quarterback like Gabriel, the offense is going to be pass heavy to begin with. He's thrown it, over 170 times already this year, 75% completion. I think Oklahoma does enough here on both sides of the ball to keep this game close. I think it's going to be last team with the possession wins, maybe even an overtime game, but I'm going to take the points with Oklahoma.
Yeah, we do our morning show with Jay Briggs Monday through Friday here, and Jay generally humps up on the Texas teams when his other teams he's rooting for aren't playing or aren't doing as well. So he'll fall back onto Texas. So at 5-0, I'm sure he's going to be all over the horn. So I'm going to be straight fade of Jay Briggs on this one and just roll with Oklahoma based on that alone. I think I like the Sooners anyway, and like Ron said, a pretty even matchup. But any chance I get to get points against Steve Sarkisian, I know it hasn't paid big dividends for me this year, but it's a long season. And the bigger the games get, the more chances for Sark to fall flat on his face. I like Oklahoma to be taking their picture under the scoreboard in the Cotton Bowl. Chris?
Yeah, sweep it. I'm going to take Oklahoma as well. Just historically, this has been a very tight series. A lot of these games have been one-score games. And, Texas, the one weakness about Texas, they've been prone to just giving up big plays this season. And I think this is a game where one or two big plays is going to be the difference. And if that ends up being the case, Quinn Ewers, 4 for 19 on throws 20 yards or more this season. So while Oklahoma's secondary can be suspect at times, don't know if I trust Ewers to make those big throws to be able to get those explosive plays. I do trust Dylan Gabriel's arm a lot more. So give me Oklahoma plus the points with a sprinkle on the money line.
Go to the Horseshoe in Columbus, where two undefeateds square off. Ohio State taking on Maryland. Maryland generally a really good home team and a really bad road team. And Ohio State coming off a week off after that narrow escape in South Bend over the Irish. But this Maryland team, a little bit different than some of the other Maryland teams that we've seen. Their defense is a lot better than most of those Maryland teams that haven't been as good on the road. And Ohio State, I don't know. I think they just seem to be missing something here. So I'm not gigantic here, jumping in with both feet with Maryland on the road. But I think that their defense is just a lot better than what they've been in the past. And I think it's going to be good enough. They're 38th in yards allowed per game. They've played nobody, but 44th against the run. Obviously, they're going to taste the run here against Ohio State. I'm going to take the Terps plus the points. I'm going to sprinkle money line here as well. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to take Maryland in the points as well. This was I think this just feels kind of like the game that happened last year. Where Ohio State was rolling, played Maryland, a Maryland team that was decent, but this Maryland team, is it feels like a lot better than last year. And last year, the Buckeyes were laying 25, and that was a 33-30 game with less than a minute to go. And before, kind of got out of hand, a field goal for Ohio State and then a fumble recovery made it a 13-point game. But I think Maryland's got what it takes to at least give Ohio State a scare here. I'm going to go with Maryland in the points in this one.
So you're saying they have a lot of moxie.
I say they have some gumption.
Ron? I think
I'm jumping in
moxie.
both. I don't think they got the moxie. I'm jumping in both feet, both arms, and legs, and everything with the Buckeyes here. This has been an absolute dominating series for Ohio State. They're 8-0 straight up, 5-3 against the number, including 5-3 against the number. The home team is 5-0 against the number in the last 5. And look at this type of points they're scoring in this series: 43, 66, 73, 52, 62, 62, 49, 52 points. Ohio State scoring against Maryland's defense. Maryland's played nobody. I got to take the Buckeyes here in an absolute rout.
So you're saying we got a chance. Got Missouri against LSU. Chris, the Tigers getting Zippo respect coming into this one. LSU, of course, overrated. I think they put the over in overrated. I personally, it's not my turn, but it will be at some point. I guess Missouri is ranked now 22nd. But anyways, a 5-0 team ranked 22nd, a 3-2 team ranked 23rd.
Yeah. I wish I could try to explain it for you and how it makes sense, but I think that this one. I think you mentioned the word over and overrated. I think this one's going well over this total. Mentioned last week we were talking with this game with the sauce with the game against Ole Miss. LSU isn't DBU anymore. It's been a very, very shaky defense for the LSU Tigers. Have been leaking oil all year, and Brady Cook, an experienced quarterback from Missouri. I think Missouri's going to be able to get their points in this one, but I still think LSU's offense can get going against Missouri's defense. I'd look for like a 38-31 kind of game here, whichever way you have it going. So, give me the over, LSU Missouri.
I'm going to be on the other side. I'm going to take the under here. I don't think Missouri can keep up offensively. I think there's no doubt about glaring issues defensively for LSU right now, but Brady Cook, while he's a solid quarterback option, I don't think he can make the explosive plays to keep them in this game, similar like Ole Miss, what they did against LSU. But LSU should be able to score at will here, and that's why I think it's going to be a one-sided game in the second half and more of a lower scoring second half. I think LSU wins the game, covers the spread, and we get under the total.
I think Eli Drinkwitz finds a way here with Missouri. I think they just grind it right down LSU's throat in a physical game. I think, it's one of those weird games where LSU doesn't have the best wide receiver on the field. Missouri does. And I think that Missouri is a way underrated team. I just think there's tons of value getting points with the home team. And I think, LSU ranked that high with 2 losses is absurd. It's basically both times they've been tested by a reasonable team, they've gotten smoked. And the one time that they played an okay team, which isn't anywhere nearly as good as Missouri, which was Arkansas, and that game was at home, they won by a last-second field goal as a 17.5-point favorite. Brian Kelly is a fraud, a farce, and a joke, and an embarrassment to all of college football. Other than that, I just don't think LSU's got the gumption. I'm taking Mizzou in this one. I think that they have no problem. I think they physically take it to LSU in this game. Brian Kelly's team's notoriously soft. Notoriously soft. A lot of quiet.
Wait to see what game's up next because got to get my numbers ready.
It's Washington State and UCLA. It's a battle in the Pac-12 at the Rose Bowl. I think if this game was at Washington State, it'd be an easy pick. But at UCLA, laying the hook here. A little bit different story.
Yeah, I got to go UCLA. This defense is something I didn't see coming from this Bruins team. We've seen Chip Kelly teams in the past and Pac-12 teams, UCLA teams be an absolute sieve defensively. But this year, UCLA has only given up 264 total yards per game and 11 points per game. And I know you look at the strength of schedule, and they haven't played many offensive juggernauts, but still really impressive for a USA team or UCLA team. Only 2 yards per carry on the ground. They're getting active at the quarterback. The offense has been also better than expected. I mean, this was considered a rebuilding year because UCLA lost a ton. They lost their quarterback for the last 5 years or so. They lost one of the best running backs in college football. So to see UCLA still playing solid football, I know last week, at Utah, or a couple weeks ago at Utah, but they're off a bye week here against Wazoo. I like Washington State. I love their coaching staff. I think they're really making strides with this program, but it's not going to be enough on the road. So I'm going to take the Bruins.
Yeah, I'm 4-0 in former incarnate word quarterback games this season, and I think I'm going to try and go to 5-0 in that with Washington State here. I've done real well with the Cougs this year. They've flown under the radar and have just done nothing but beaten good teams week after week. It's not like they've had a soft schedule. They beat Wisconsin, they beat Oregon State, and they're going to beat UCLA outright in this game. The Bruins, I think, have a bright future. I love the quarterback play. I think, sometimes guys come in super hyped, and then you say, oh, man, this guy's not really that good. But UCLA, I think this guy actually is that good. Just don't think he's that good enough yet. But Washington State has a guy that is good right now, and I think they win this game outright. Chris?
I'm going to take the over 59 here. I do lean towards Washington State with the points, but I just think this is going to be an offensive shootout. I think Dante Moore, I think he is legit. I think he's every bit the hyped prospect and the 5-star prospect that he was proven to be. This is a UCLA team that can run the football. They're top 10 in yards per carry, while Washington State's defense 98th in yards per carry allowed. They can pass the ball as well against the 101st ranked defense of Washington State, but Washington State's offense can move as well. Second in the country in passing yardage. I look for this to be an entertaining game, high scoring. Give me the over.
Syracuse visiting North Carolina last week. Syracuse was a super public dog. A lot of people just all over Syracuse, which made me change. I was on Clemson the whole way anyway. But anyways, Schrader, to me, he's a guy that just makes a lot of mistakes. The thing is, it's like they're not in like the clutch situations, and they're not in like the weird spots or anything like that. It's just like a second down where he's just like standing there with the football, just drops it on the ground or something. It's like it's these weird, bad mistakes that he makes. But North Carolina, Mac Brown winning his coach of something active, whatever. They showed some weird graphic last week, but still got trash-ass defense and overrated quarterback. So that's some problems here. I think this is the week to jump on Syracuse as the dog with the points and last week, everyone a little bit ahead of themselves. We've seen Syracuse head to this area of the country just about every year, against Clemson and put up a good fight. But I think this is the game for the Cuse. I think everyone else was a week early on them. So for me, Syracuse, I think they got a good shot on the money line here as well. I think North Carolina looking ahead.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards North Carolina here. I don't love this game. But it feels like one of those games where North Carolina just does enough to win by 10. Not really much more I can add to it. I mean, Garrett Schrader, he's been okay. I gave him maybe a little bit too much credit last week. But Drake May played fairly well. Like I said, I don't love this game at all, but I lean towards North Carolina laying the points. I think they win this one 34-24.
Wow, the under 4.5 on the Drake Mays hits in the Ruffolo analysis there. Yeah, Drake May, the over under was 4.5, and he was. Came in as at 1. He almost pitched a shutout.
Almost went
there,
under the 0.
He slid one in at the end.
I almost had the Nerfy.
Yeah, it was very, very close, but that wasn't going to happen. A shutout was 4,000 to 1. Ron?
Yeah, I'll lean with Ruffolo and take North Carolina. I think off the bye week, especially, I like the head coach. I like the coaching staff of North Carolina. I think Dino Babers has done great at Syracuse, but we saw Syracuse the first step-up game of the year because I don't really consider Purdue a great team this year. We saw Syracuse get crushed, and that was at the Carrier Dome where Syracuse plays so much better now on the road after a really tough physical game. We got outgained. You only put up 286 total yards. You couldn't run the football. Your offensive line struggled. I like Schrader, but I don't love him in the passing game. I like when he's able to use his legs, and I don't think he's going to be able to do so here. So give me North Carolina.
Well, monster game at College Station. Texas A&M taking on Alabama. This line, I've seen zeros on this one. I know that Chris made this graphic. He put it at 1.5, but actually I've seen it circa. I believe it is at 0 now. With a lot of money.
I'm seeing 1.5 at DraftKings still.
Well, actually now I'm seeing 2.5 at Westgate, and all right, so I'm wrong. 2.5 now at.
Really? I'm seeing 0 at Westgate and 0 at Circa.
Maybe I need to refresh. I will freshen.
Yeah, I'm seeing pick them at Circa and Westgate.
Really?
No way.
No way.
Get out of here. I don't know, 2.5.
I show pick them at Circa, pick them at Westgate.
Yeah.
One and a lot of ones, and a 1.5 at FanDuel and at DraftKings. Ron, what do you think?
I think it's Chris's turn.
I thought he just went. Oh, all right. Go ahead, Chris. I think it's. Right. What do you think? I think it's Chris's turn.
I gotta get ready.
Trying to dish this one off on me. I'm gonna go.
Trying to get my makeup on.
I'm gonna go with Texas A&M here. I think this is the most vulnerable Alabama's been in a while. I know they got some issues sorted out against Mississippi State last week, and I think this is just going to be a game where I don't think the quarterback play is going to come into effect here in terms of passing the football. I think Texas A&M is going to be able to shut down any designed runs that Alabama has for Jalen Milroe. They've already shut down the likes of Connor Jefferson and Robbie Ashford, two of the better mobile quarterbacks in the SEC in terms of moving the ball on the ground. But yeah, I just don't know if I can trust Jalen Milroe to make the plays that he needs too late to get Alabama to win on the road in a hostile environment at College Station. So give me Texas A&M in this one.
Ron.
I'm going to go with the under here. I know we're not getting the best of the number. It's dropped a few points now, but I still think we have two of the top 5 defenses in the country in this matchup, and I don't love the quarterback play from Max Johnson, even though he was solid last week and got the job done. I think he didn't fit at LSU for a reason. So I do think that A&M offense struggles, but Alabama's offense, like Chris mentioned, this is one of the weakest offenses we've seen from the Tide in a long time. The offensive line's given up 4 or more sacks in the last 4 weeks, and you've got a really good pass rush for Texas A&M that's had 7 sacks the last 2 weeks against Auburn and Arkansas. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game, a lot of holdings, a lot of sacks, a lot of tackle for losses. Give me the under.
I'm going to roll Texas A&M in this thing, and I just think that it's going to just give me more fodder to say that Miami just didn't get enough credit for their really one-sided win against Texas A&M. They spotted the Aggies, a big number there to start the game, fumbling a punt and also turning the ball over with an interception and falling down. I believe it was 20-0. Came back and blew Texas A&M right out of the building, putting 48 points on them. You look at that 48 that Miami put on them. I mean, no one's even come within a whiff of that. So, but the Hurricanes once again get 0 credit for that. Zip. Barely ranked ahead of LSU with 2 losses. I'm taking Texas A&M, and once again, it's not going to help Miami's win over Texas A&M mean anything more than what it did to the pollsters. I just don't think this is it. I think what we're seeing at Alabama is years and years of guys leaving early and the effect that has on a program. Is that you lose that depth, and then with the transfer portal, you've lost all of your guys that were kind of sitting there that weren't guys that could just come in right away and play, but guys that were going to have to sit a couple years, get better, and play. You've lost all those guys because of the portal, and now it's like what you have are recruits that didn't hit on their number, and you just don't have any depth. So I saw it. It happens. This is what happens to everybody. If you've ever been on top, this is what happens to you, and it'll be Georgia next. But you see like all these key players, like at Miami, we have best receiver, right? From Alabama in the portal, Colorado, their best player. Well, not the guys that get the most ink, but their actual best player is the guy who came in from Alabama. Anyways, Arizona State and Colorado. Colorado is now 3-2. A little bit of the luster off the Golden Buffalo. Meanwhile, Arizona State, tidy 1-4. Ron, what do you think?
I think they're going to 3-3. Those Buffs. I'm going to take Arizona State here, and I think I'm going to take them on the money line plus the points. It's been a really rough year for Arizona State thus far, but we saw. I think that Cal is one of the more underrated teams in not just the Pac-12 but in college football in general. And Arizona State went into Cal, outgained it by over 100 yards. The passing game had its best week by far. The offensive line had its best week by far. No sacks given up. The defense was solid against the ground game, and they forced a very bad completion percentage of the opposing quarterback. Arizona State could have won that game if it wasn't -2 in the turnover battle in that one, but I think they're going to win the trenches in this one, both offensive and defensive line. Colorado, their offense looks strong against USC, but one of the biggest sieves in college football is USC defense. I think Arizona State at home here, really good spot for them to get a feel-good win. Give me the Sun Devils.
I like the Sun Devils as well. I think that they can run with Colorado. They certainly have got the speed to run with these guys. And I think they just might have more pro players on the team, overall. I just think they have more talent. And, that's going to be the difference maker. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me still. And still, despite Colorado getting shellacked at Outson and, pretty much getting danced on by the Trojans, at least offensively, I think people are going to disagree and think that, just because they beat Nebraska or something that they're fast. But it's like Colorado has some fast players, but they're not an overall fast team compared to most of the other teams. And we're starting to see that as they get into conference play, especially against USC and Oregon, who, ran circles around them. Chris?
Yeah, I'm taking Arizona State as well. This line just feels really funky at 4.5. I think there's something to it. Trenton Bourguet, he was really good against Cal last week, and I think he could really give Arizona State a shot to move the ball up and down in this sieve of a Colorado defense. Is Arizona State going to light anyone on fire? No, but I think they're still middle of the country in terms of passing yardage. Colorado's defense 115th against the rush, 126th against the pass, and every game pretty much from here on out is Arizona State's Super Bowl. No bowl game for this Arizona State team, even if they were to make bowl eligibility. So I think they take this game seriously. I think they get sky high for this one. I think they give Colorado a run if they don't win it outright. So give me Arizona State in the points.
So there's a comment here, double talk, how you count Arizona State versus USC, but not Colorado. Let me tell you something. Arizona State's a 1-4 team. If the books really believed in Colorado, they'd be a 19.5-point favorite in this game because I can only imagine the amount of money that's going to come in on Colorado at this number. I can't even count that high. Chris, can you count that high?
No.
How many toes you got?
Not enough to count. I'd be here until next season's Week 6 college football show counter.
Doesn't this numbers just seem so low for this game?
When I saw it, I was like, "There's no way. There's got to be a mix-up somewhere. It's got to be a bad line."
Arizona State's coming off its best game by far this year. It's not even close. I mean, it looked like a completely different team. So and now they go back home. That was on the road. So there's no. I never say that games are easy. I think there's easy choices to be making when you're placing bets, but no game's going to be easy. I mean, you could lose no matter if it's the lock of the century, but this is, to me, an easy choice. I think it's just one way I think Arizona State's to play.
It's like Mike Mitch used to say. Everyone telling you how easy it's going to be.
Yeah, no. I mean, listen, they could go out and get crushed, but I think the choice is Arizona State here.
But realistically, if you didn't have any narrative behind it, like what they did last week, and you just looked at these two teams on the surface coming into this game, prior to what they did like all season up to last week, this line probably would have been 9.5 or into double digits at the very least.
At the very least. Go between the hedges in Athens is the number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs. A lot of people starting to feel that Georgia not deserving of the number 1 ranking. 23-game winning streak. too shy of entering this into what we call that rarefied air. When you get into 25 or longer, well, that's when you get into the longest winning streaks of all time. And, Georgia certainly headed into that neighborhood, not necessarily blowing teams out, but, the whole idea is you win some games and then, you get your chances against in the big games. This is going to be one of those games. And, Kentucky generally starts the season fairly strong. And they've done so once again. We talked about it last week. We talked about it before that generally Kentucky's a 5-0, 6-0 team now almost every single year under Stoops before college basketball starts. 14.5 just seems a little steep. It seems like they're baiting you to take Kentucky with that hook. But just, I guess I'm going to take the bait. I don't love this game. I think I'm a little bit afraid of it. But I'll take the 14.5 with Kentucky, but I'm probably not going to bet it unless Ruffolo wants to spot me the cash.
I can toss you a couple bucks. I'm going to take Kentucky in the points as well. I maybe lean towards the under here as well, but the big I think top 5 teams this season are hitting only like 35% as double-digit favorites or something like that. A lot of that has to do with the new clock rules. But I think you're starting to see people maybe open their eyes a little bit with Georgia. They're winning games, but they're not blowing teams away. I had Georgia big last week against Auburn, and Auburn made that a dogfight. Georgia couldn't pull away in that game. Kentucky, this is still a decent Kentucky team. They're second in the country in yards per carry. They're not going to try to air it out on you, but tell you, this Georgia defense is solid, but Kentucky can slow down the run as well. I'm not all that high on Carson Beck. He's a solid quarterback, but I think Kentucky can do enough, especially if you're still getting 14.5. I think it keeps one a 2-touchdown game. So give me Kentucky in the points. I mean, last year's 16-6? Yeah, I could see something similar here. Give me the under and the Kentucky Wildcats in the points.
16 to 6.5.
I'm on Georgia. Last 4, the Georgia's not been good against the spread in this series recently. They dropped the last 4, but you look at the spreads in those games, 22.5, 21.5, 24.5, 17, all steeper than what we see for this game. I think we're getting some good line value. And Georgia went on to win those games all by double digits, but just couldn't cover those big numbers. But now we're getting them at a reasonable price because they've haven't looked as dominant as we've seen in years prior and last year. But I still think Georgia, the best team in college football until otherwise. And I think they're going to be able to win this game by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I didn't discount the Colorado or Arizona State game against USC. I just discount USC altogether. I think they're a fraud. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going to lose to Notre Dame next week, and I think that will be it for them. Another Lincoln Riley team that, as I love to say, can just go away. I hate Lincoln Riley teams. Nothing worse than a college football playoff with a Lincoln Riley team. We call that's what they call in the business, an automatic. Got Ole Miss taking on Arkansas. The Hogs now on a 3-game losing streak after losing to Texas A&M at Jerry World last week. Ole Miss did not like the call against LSU for the touchdown. They threw some cans and bottles at the referees. I tell you what, I understand they got fined for it and all that other stuff, but stop making shit calls and maybe they'll stop throwing stuff at you. Chris, what do you think? Was it a touchdown? Not even close.
No.
I mean, not even close. It's like, how do you get touchdown out of that?
I don't know.
Do you make the guys Do you make the guys not allowed to wear white shoes on the white stripe? I mean, I don't know. The refs can't figure it out.
Yeah, not sure. I'm going to take the over here, over 63. This historically been a high-scoring series, especially last year, 42-27. It just snuck over the number, but over the number nonetheless. And you've got Arkansas giving up 34 points or more in 3 straight weeks against this Ole Miss offense that can move the ball up and down the field, and 6th in the country in scoring offense, 44.6 points per game. But I think Arkansas can do some damage themselves. Ole Miss sort of middle of the pack in terms of scoring defense, but Arkansas putting up 34 points per game themselves. So give me the over here. I think we get up in over 63. I think we get closer to 70 in this one.
Ron?
I'm on Ole Miss in this one. I talked about last week how Arkansas last couple of years they've had like this big step up game where they lost and then went on this losing streak. We saw last year against Texas A&M, lost by 2 points, ended up losing two more games to Mississippi State and Alabama. Year before they won a 3-game losing streak after losing to Georgia, and now they're on another losing streak here. They lost that game against BYU when they were favored. Lost to LSU in a close one. It was the final score 34-22 against Texas A&M, but the game was not as close as that final score. As they only put up 174 total yards in that game. And we've talked about going into the season. KJ Jefferson was supposed to provide some of the best quarterback play, not only in the SEC but in the country. Just hasn't been the case. I don't think Arkansas's offense keeps up enough. Give 7 sacks last week. They've given up at least 4 in the last 3 weeks. Give me Ole Miss by 2 touchdowns or more.
Yeah, Arkansas just not a good team this season. And Jefferson, I think, overrated at quarterback. It's kind of like what I say to Chris a lot. I'm not mad. I'm just really disappointed, and I think that's what I feel about Arkansas. It's like they're just not a very good team this year. I think Ole Miss is just getting better and better as things go on, and Lane Kiffin's kind of got them in gear now. Really not just a pure offense thing like Lane Kiffin's had before, but I gotta say, getting the bad call against you, the horrific call, and even replay, missed it. Then scoring 2 touchdowns and winning the game anyway is huge. It's just big time character, and I think Sam Pittman's going to get fired on the field at Arkansas because that's what they do. It's how they treat their coaches. They fire them right on the field. You won't need to go to the locker room because you've been let go. Louisville hosting Notre Dame, 3rd night game in a row for the Irish. I mean, they've had the home game against Ohio State last week at Duke, and this week at Papa John's versus the Ville. Ron, it's you, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to take Louisville in the points here. Notre Dame's last couple of weeks played in these really close games, exciting finishes. We saw the 3-point loss against Ohio State, the miraculous 4th and 16 conversion to go on to beat Duke by 7 and cover that number. But Louisville's comfortable playing these close games as well. We saw last week at NC State winning by 3, 13-10. This Louisville defense, another team like UCLA that I mentioned, historically, at least in maybe like 5-10 years ago, Louisville defenses were some of the worst in Power 5 football. But the last couple of years, they've really been improvements there, and that includes this season only giving up 17 points per game and 328 yards per game. Really strong run defense. Notre Dame, very slow offense. They're using these new college football rules to their advantage, limit the amount of possessions, and we saw that last week. But I think in a low-scoring game, probably points are going to be at a premium. I'm going to take the points with the home team. That's been perfect so far.
I'm going to take Louisville as well. I think good shot at the money line here in this one. Notre Dame, they didn't get lucky last week at Duke, but they also what they did is left, 25 points on the board. In the first half, it was 10-0, and it felt like it should have been 31-0. It was one of those games, and they just never took advantage. Duke, all it took was a little bit of a nudge, and they got to the lead 14-13. It was a miraculous 4th down conversion. It was some hideous tackling by a worn-down Duke defense that really was the undoing there. If it came down to that last-second field goal, the way things had gone for Notre Dame, I'm not so sure I don't think it's such an automatic that they make that thing. That's why I'm not a big fan of teams that say, the running back runs out there and then he falls down and then they smash into the line, make the other team burn their timeouts, get to 1 or 2 seconds and go for the field goal. It's like, because I don't think that, I know that Notre Dame kicker can kick it 65 yards, but he didn't seem all that accurate last week. So I don't know. I think Louisville Papa John's is a much tougher building than people give it credit for. Much, much, much tougher. Many of a good Miami team has gone down there and gotten stomped. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to take Louisville in the points as well. To me, this just feels like one of those games that maybe Notre Dame, a lot of people think Notre Dame should go in and win comfortably because there's sort of a stigma still with Louisville football, but I think Louisville comes in and gives Notre Dame a game here. I think this game, 3 or 4 point game, if Louisville doesn't give it a shot to win outright. Like you said, Papa John's probably one of the more underappreciated home field environments in the ACC, maybe in college football as well. And yeah, I like Louisville potentially have a shot to win this out right here. So give me Louisville in the points.
We head to Flexville where the Minnesota Golden Gophers taking on Michigan. This one for the jug. And in these trophy games, things are a little bit different than they are in the regular games. If it was just two teams and you looked at them statistically, like Minnesota and Michigan, you'd probably look at it one way. But when you look at the jug, I think you have to look at it a little bit differently. And I know that PJ Fleck's Minnesota team has been about as boring as you can get, and really nice taking the other side with points is always a really good place to be when Fleck's favored, especially by double digits. But I gotta say, I think Minnesota's got a real puncher's chance here at Michigan because the Wolverines just haven't been tested at all. I mean, they haven't really faced anything at all. So facing it now in Minnesota, who's not a great Minnesota team, but in a rivalry game, I just think that whole rivalry thing takes everything to the next level, and I think winning the jug on the road certainly not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to take Minnesota here with the points. I'm gonna put some money on the money line as well that Michigan gets knocked off because a lot of chirping out there that Michigan deserves to be number one after they went to the playoff last year and got shellacked. And then this is typical Michigan crap. They've never won anything. In my lifetime, and I'm 100, right? So in my lifetime, they've won half of a national championship. In that national championship, that half a championship that they won, that they split with a Nebraska team that won 3 in 4 years. I mean, this is the gift that they were given. They were given a split with a Nebraska team that won 3 in 4 years. Nebraska offered to play them straight up on a neutral field to decide it, and Michigan wouldn't take the game. That Nebraska team beat us, with Warren Sapp and Ray Lewis. So they drove the length of the field in the fourth quarter, needed a touchdown, and got it on us with Sapp and Ray Lewis. I don't know, man. Michigan's a fraud. I'm taking Minnesota. I think they're going to beat them outright. Carry that jug off the field, and the Flexter will be talking some big time stuff, strutting his stuff. A chicken, right? He looks almost like a chicken on the side.
I'm gonna take the over 46 here. This is been a higher scoring series, for years. I mean, I know they took a break from it for a couple of years, but last time we saw it was 49-24 in 2020. And I still think that while these are two Big Ten teams, normally a rivalry game that you can sort of buckle up the chin straps and black and blue Big Ten football, I still think there's enough here from Michigan offensively to chip in maybe into the high 20s, low 30s. I think Minnesota can do enough to get this total up and over into the 50 range. So give me the over 46 here, Michigan, Minnesota.
Ron?
I'm going Michigan here. I know Michigan hasn't played anybody like Mitch mentioned, but look at the Minnesota schedule. They played Nebraska,
They
Eastern
both played
Michigan.
Nebraska.
I know. Let me finish my sentence, please. Nebraska, Eastern Michigan, North Carolina, Northwestern, and Louisiana. And in those games, they scored 24 points per game. So this offense has done nothing against some of the weaker teams in college football. And now you're playing one of the best defenses in college football in Michigan, who's giving up just 6 points per game this season. I don't see how Minnesota scores enough to keep themselves in this game, let alone less than 3 touchdowns. Michigan's offense has not been explosive, but a very good offensive line that should be able to run the ball at will, like we saw Louisiana do last week, who ran for just under 200 yards and 6.6 yards per carry. Minnesota's defense not really getting active against the quarterback. And we saw against Northwestern, Ben Bryant threw for 400 passing yards. So I think J.J. McCarthy and this Michigan offense will be fine. Give me the Wolverines big.
I think you put 25 on Eastern Michigan. You could surely put 26 on regular Michigan. Gonna get flecked. Little brown jug. We head to Miami where the Canes coming off of a bye week up against Georgia Tech. Chris, do you dare go against my Canes on this show?
Come on, do it, Chris.
I don't know if I want to be back next week, or if you'll be back on the morning show tomorrow. Oh man, Eesh. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Miami here, but I'm not running anywhere near this thing. I like Haynes King, and they've almost pulled off the upset in each of their last 3 trips to Miami, but it to me, excuse me, to me this just feels like a game where I'll be on Georgia Tech, getting 20 and a half, 21, and Miami wins this game 38-14. So anything involving Miami, first it was the Marlins, maybe it's the Hurricanes now, who knows, maybe I'm cursed with Miami teams, but I'll take Miami laying the points.
I'm going to take Georgia Tech, but not because I think they're anywhere near the better team. I think Miami's really been solid this year. It's just based on line value. I mean, we're getting the very best of the line with what happened to these two teams recently. Miami's just dominated the last couple of opponents. We saw them win outright against Texas A&M, 41-7 over Temple, 48-7 over Bethune-Cookman. On the other side, Georgia Tech got upset 38-27 against Bowling Green. But a lot of that was because of the turnovers. The offense was fine in that game, in the passing game. So I think because of those results, we're getting such a good number with Georgia Tech. There's just no value at Miami in this spot. So I'll lean towards Georgia Tech, but it's not my favorite game on the board.
Miami, top 10 offense, top 10 defense. This is the best Canes team that we have had in a very, very long time. We've played lousy opponents outside of Texas A&M, who we put almost 50 points on, as Ron mentioned, top. And that's considering that we put 50 on them, is included in that, in not that many games. So that's how good that Texas A&M defense is. This is the best Miami team that we've seen. It's better than the one that was a few years ago that shellacked Notre Dame. It's way better. It's like this team doesn't stumble. They don't make mistakes. They're not making the stupid mistakes. They're not beating themselves. And they have the best offensive line in the nation. And I'll put it up against anybody. And it's like they're going to run right over Georgia Tech. And I'm telling you, they're going to make very, very quick work of them. And they're going to put up 38-14, more like 52-0. I don't see how Georgia Tech scores on the speed of this Miami defense. They are so fast on the defensive line, at the linebacker spot, at the safety spot, at the corners. This is an NFL defense. And I'm telling you, I've seen them before in Miami. This is the building blocks of a great Miami team. We're not there yet. We're not all the way back. I think we got a crack at Florida State and Tallahassee, but this is going to be an absolute layup, as this is Miami's last of the layup games, and I think you see them, flex the muscles for fun. After this, they go to North Carolina, Clemson, Virginia, the easy one, NC State, Florida State, Louisville is the schedule coming up. So look for Miami to probably empty the bench, 4 deep at running back. Each of them score a touchdown in this thing. Miami's been way, way underrated all season. And I'll tell you one thing that's always super dangerous for the Miami teams, underrated, man. When they've won the national championship 3 times coming off unranked preseason teams. Look for them to do some damage in this game. I don't think they win the whole title this year, but I think they're back on the map. And I think recruiting, you're already starting to see the big-time recruits stay home at Miami. Also, they're hitting that IMG Academy pretty well, which is usually a good sign. I like that IMG Academy recruits. Go Canes. Thanks, Chris, for picking this one for our show.
Yeah, next time, no more Miami games, please.
We got North Carolina next week.
Oh,
and Clemson.
Boy. Oh. All right, when they play Virginia, they better no Miami.
Clemson will be post.
Please,
Clemson,
are you kidding?
The Clemson
that's my
game
revenge.
will be
that's my revenge for getting rid of Washington Tulsa a few weeks ago.
The Clemson game will be 2 days after my surgery. You can only hope that I'm drugged up for that one.
Oh no! Turning off my Slack notification.
Oh, actually, the show is on. I might miss the show that day. We might have to actually have it on another day. Have a show on another day. Record it. My surgery's on the day of the show, the 19th.
You could just do it in the bed.
From the surgery.
The hospital bed.
But they knock you out. I'm not awake.
Mitch just starts screaming, "I got flecked."
It's like I said to Rod before his surgery. Rod was like, "I'm all worried about my surgery." I'm like, "Don't worry, you'll wake up." He's like, "That's not what I was worried about."
No, you said you'll probably wake up.
Don't worry, you'll wake
That's what I remember. You were like, you'll probably wake up. You'll probably be fine.
Anyways, Wyoming up against Fresno State. Fresno, I think them and Air Force could be between those two for the group of 5 bid for the bowl games, if they're still doing that, since everybody's now in the big conferences. I think it's you, Ron.
Oh, I'm going to take Wyoming. Weird things happen in Laramie, and this Cowboys team's already pulled off a couple nice wins against strong programs at home this year. Texas Tech, of course, the big one in the beginning of the season, but Appalachian State, a team that's perennially one of the best teams in the Sun Belt year after year, and Wyoming's a perfect 4-0 at home this season, straight up, and even their one road game, they went against the Longhorns in Texas, and they covered that number and actually only got outgained by 25 yards. So this has been a solid Wyoming team, and they're getting back to what they like to do as a program: run the football well, trusting that good offensive line. Quarterback play is always a little suspect, but even though Andrew Peasley's doesn't have the best numbers, he's been a solid game manager. The defense has been strong, especially in the secondary this year. They've really improved there. I'm going to take the points with Wyoming.
I think I'm going to take the points with Wyoming too, but I think this game is a field goal game either way. I think Wyoming has a chance to win this game. I think Fresno has a chance to win it. And I just think 6 is a lot in a game that should be very, very tight. Wyoming is battle tested, and I think that's the difference here. They're not going to see anything from Fresno that they haven't already seen before. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to take Wyoming in the points as well. Fresno State, the toughest game they played this season was against Purdue on the road earlier this season. And it was
my game of the week that week.
And it was 39-35. Fresno State's 35 points hung on them. Since then, they played Eastern Washington, road game against Arizona State, who were in shambles at the time. Kent State and Nevada, 2 of the worst teams in college football.
It's tough Kent State. They're scrappy.
Yeah, without the S. And Wyoming, like Ron said, got the win over Texas Tech. And they battled Texas hard on the road. So I think that there's something to be said for, that being Wyoming's only loss this season. And like Ron said, can't say it any better. Weird things happen in Laramie at night. And I think that, this line is telling you where you need to be. I think if Fresno State, if they had a little bit more confidence in Fresno State, this line would be closer to 8.5 or 9, I would think. So give me Wyoming in the points.
Go to Cal, where Oregon State visits. Oregon State, great at home. Not so great on the road. DJU is still DJU. We saw him the last time he was on the road. Kind of do some things that you kind of said, this is maybe why he's not at Clemson anymore. And but at home, they have been stellar. I think Cal, like Ron said earlier in the show, probably one of the more underrated teams out there. And getting 9.5 points at home with Cal, I think the world's going to be on the Beavers in this one. I think we might even be able to get more than this. If it goes any lower, man, I would just jump on it, because it's like, that means the real smart money is going on Cal. The wise guys, real wise guy money, as opposed to fake wise guy money. Chris?
Yeah, I'm going to take Cal on the points as well here. I think this Cal team's actually been a little bit better than I gave him credit for early on this season. Justin Wilcox, the head coach, usually thrives as an underdog. So getting points here against an Oregon State team that, if this game was at Reeser, I'd have no problem laying the points with Oregon State. But like you said, you take them out on the road, they do become a bit of a different team here. And I think Cal keeps this one within a touchdown, 31-24, if they don't have a shot to win it outright. So give me Cal on the points.
Yeah, I just think this is a really bad matchup for Oregon State's offense, and especially DJ Uiagalelei. We have just never been able to see him take over a game. And, he's been a decent game manager this year, but that's with a really strong run game. I mean, there's been 3 or 4 games this year for Oregon State where they've topped 5.5 yards per carry. But now you're going on the road, like we mentioned, Oregon State nowhere near as potent on the road offensively. And you're facing a Cal team that's just been so strong against the run, even in the Pac-12, and for a Pac-12 defense. They're only giving up 3.3 yards per carry this season, and that's including a game against Washington, one of the best offenses in the nation. So really strong run defense. The Cal secondary is not the best, and they're not going to put a lot of pressure on DJU, but they do force a lot of turnovers, and they're going to force DJU to make the plays. I don't think he can make those consistently. And I think Cal's offense, the offensive line's been sturdy, good run game. Quarterback play's been better than what we've seen in the last couple of years. I think Cal's a live dog, so I'll take those points with a sprinkle on the money line.
Last game on the board, it is USC taking on Arizona. USC 5-0 on the season, looking to become bowl eligible. I think their sights are set higher, but of course our sights set a little lower. Chris?
Yeah, you probably call us realists. I'm going to take Arizona and the points in this one. Even historically, head-to-head, this has been a very close matchup in recent years. I mean, the last 3 meetings have all been one-score games, and that was with Arizona catching, 14, 22, and 15 each of the last 3 years. And if there's no Jaden Delora, it does hurt them a little bit. He is questionable for this game with a calf issue, but Noah Fafita filled in admirably last week against Washington and kept Arizona in that game against a really good Washington offense. So I think Arizona's got some value here with the points, especially when you're getting the hook on the key number of 21. I'll take Arizona the points in this one.
Ron?
Yeah, on the road, I just can't get there with Arizona. There are 2 road games this year. Lost to a Mississippi State team. It's having one of the worst years in a while, and then barely beat one of the weaker teams in the Pac-12 in Stanford. You were outgained in that game. Now you're playing USC, such a strong offense. They should be able to put up 50-plus points in this game. Honestly, they've done so. They're averaging 54 points per game and 59 points per game at home. So if they get to those 50, I just don't see a world that Arizona keeps up, especially with that questionable injury to Delora. So I'm going to take the USC here and lay the points.
I'm going to take the over in this one. I just can't get there with USC because I think Arizona can put points on the board. I think anybody can put points on. If Colorado can put 41 on you, then I think Arizona sure as hell could put 41.5 on you. And I just think USC, like Ron said, I think they're going to score 50. So 72 was the number last week against Colorado, or 73. But the prospects of a Lincoln Riley team in the playoff, just...
For the last time, no.
I really don't want any part of it, I got to say, man. It's like, it's not fair to the rest of us. It's like watching the Giants in prime time. It's not fair. They need to go away. Lincoln Riley. It's enough. All right. Well, that wraps up this week's show. Any games we did not cover, Chris or Ron, that you want to talk about?
Let me see.
Anything you got to say for yourself?
No, not much.
Not much.
I'm gonna take USF laying the 4 against UAB. I love watching Trent Dilfer yell at his assistants on the sidelines. Have a full-on meltdown.
I'm going to take Miami minus the 20.5 against Georgia Tech.
Oh, really? I think we saw a MAC over Power 5 upset last week with Bowling Green over Georgia Tech. I think the best chance of that happening this week is with Western Michigan, considering I think they're the only MAC team that's playing a Power 5. But Western Michigan's improved every week, and this is a program that has pulled off some nice upsets in the past. So I'll take a shot with Western Michigan.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Make it a winning week. We'll see you next week at this same time, and then the following week, I guess we'll have to reschedule or figure it out. But I might have to do it on Wednesday and tape it and release it. Set it on the slow release timer. Or these guys can do it without me, which they might. they might need by that time. Thanks everyone. Make it a winning day. We appreciate each and every one.